Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sachs, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sachs.
Well, welcome to another edition of Someone You Should Know. It's getting to be that season, and I hope everyone is well. Hope you are, if you are getting out, you're keeping covered and all. And I wish everyone a very, very happy and a healthy holiday season. And one thing that goes along with that season, it would not be the holiday season without the Salvation Army. And I am more than pleased to have with me Christina Cavalier this morning, who is the Senior Director of Community Relations with the North Texas Salvation Army. Christina, welcome.
Thank you so much.
I am so pleased to have you because I think I don't believe that there's anybody watching this show or listening to this show that is not familiar with the Salvation Army, but they may not be completely knowledgeable and aware of all of the things that the Salvation Army does. It's more than collecting money in kettles. So I want you to spend a few minutes and just let everybody know what you do. And you cover 5 counties in North Texas and all, but what you do and what are some of the programs that the Salvation Army is involved in, especially at this time of the year?
Sure. Thank you. And thanks again for having me. So the Salvation Army of North Texas has a 5-county service area. So we serve those in need in Collin, Denton, Dallas, Tarrant, and Ellis counties. It's one of the largest regions for the Salvation Army in the country. So it's a really big area, as we North Texans know. And our mission is to meet human need in His name without discrimination. And here in North Texas, we do that by focusing on those experiencing homelessness, poverty, and addiction. So we're really helping people who maybe aren't at their best or have been struggling. We help first meet their immediate needs, whether that's getting them a roof over their heads or foods in their bellies, or helping to prevent homelessness by helping them with financial assistance. And then we have programs that we help connect them with. Some of those we work with our partners here in North Texas who are other, it might be a hospital or social service providers or the government to get them the care that they need. And then we really try to help them lift themselves out of poverty if they're ready to do that.
So you then also kind of serve as a clearinghouse, because as people come to you with a need, then you point them in the direction of where they can go.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I know that in the DFW area, there are a variety of service centers that are dealing with the various things that you just talked about. And again, I think that maybe people don't realize that over the years, it's more than just collecting dollars and coins in buckets on street corners and all. And then the money just goes into a big pot. And as it's needed, you hand out a little money to people. You have specific programs to help those people. So one of the biggest questions that I have is, how has COVID-19 impacted the work that you have done up to this season, and what is the perception of how it's going to impact you and your fundraising efforts for the holiday season?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we certainly have seen a tremendous increase in demand for our services since March, when really here in North Texas, shelter in place started due to COVID-19. At some of our sites, we have seen the demand for our services, particularly food assistance, quadruple. We, across the country for the Salvation Army, anticipate that we'll continue to see that demand rise over the holiday season. On a national perspective, we're expecting that will increase 151% year over year. And while we don't quite see that tremendous impact here in North Texas, we do see a huge increase for need. And so in our COVID-19 response, we've really focused on some main areas to help people. So food assistance is one that's been really important. Another is financial assistance. Shelter is another focus area for us, and then emotional and spiritual care, which is something that the Salvation Army always focuses on for our clients. It's not required, but we often find that people seek it out and it helps them in their recovery. In terms of food assistance, we've got 13 drive-through food pantries all across North Texas. And through that, since March, we've served over 4 million pounds of food. And we're seeing clients come to us for the very first time. And we've even had clients tell us that they've in the past been donors to the Salvation Army, and now they're seeking assistance.
Have you seen the need for shelter, especially with COVID, because some people are being displaced from their homes or foreclosed, or you can't pay the rent, so they're being evicted and all? Are you seeing that that's one of the areas that's starting to increase?
Yes, absolutely. But we're trying to tackle that in a little bit of a different way. And for us, we call that homeless prevention. And so that's where the financial assistance component comes in. So as we've seen moratoriums on evictions, kind of lift, and some of the stimulus money has not been available, and people have either lost their jobs or their wages have been reduced, we've stepped in with the help of partners, including local governments, to provide financial assistance. And so what that means is we've distributed a little over $1.5 million to those who might be facing eviction, to help get them caught up on their rent and, in some cases, utilities, which prevents them from ending up being homeless. It's harder to help people once they're homeless. We want to prevent that as much as we can.
Yeah, that's got to be a great program, because it's one thing for someone not to be able to pay their rent and they have to relocate, but if they've got a family, you can only take so much with you, and also it becomes even more challenging. And the fact that you have the ability to financially help them stay where they currently are and assist them that way, that's great. We do have a website that we will put up on the screen from time to time and all with the website, and that's probably the best way for people to get information. I think it's salvationarmynorthtexas.org.
That's correct.
And because if you that's the best place for you to go if you have information. Contacting some of the various centers that can be helpful too, but go to the website first, and you'll get a myriad of information and even the ability if you want to make donations. And that seems to be one of the key topics right now, is the fact that because of COVID, a lot of people are not going to the malls like they used to. That means that your volunteers that are out there manning those kettles are not going to probably see as many people this year as they've seen in past years. There is a need for people to continue to give in whatever way they can, because the programs have not been cut back in anything. It's probably the opposite. Your programs have probably accelerated, so there's even a greater need.
Right, exactly. And the holiday season, so from October to December, is a really important time for the Salvation Army for fundraising. All across the country, and especially here in North Texas, we typically raise about 50% of our raised revenue during that time frame. And that's money that supports our operations all year long, not just right now. And as you described, we know that there's reduced foot traffic at retail locations. We know that people are being cautious, of course, due to the pandemic. And so that means that people may be less hesitant to put cash in the kettle. But we're also struggling to get volunteers to man the kettles and ring those bells and help us raise those funds. So there's a lot of unique challenges this year, but to your point, the need is still so great. And we really anticipate that it will continue. The need will continue to rise for some time due to the economic ramifications of the pandemic.
So if someone wants to volunteer to help man the kettles and everything, they can go to the website, and there will be a link that they can go to in order to send their information and be contacted.
Yes, absolutely. You can go to our website, salvationarmynorthtexas.org, and find information there about how you can sign up. And it's a really great, easy way to sign up. You can go and choose your location, where you are here in North Texas. And based on that, it'll pull up what's available in terms of ringing sites, and you can choose what works best for you.
So if you live in Dallas, they're not going to send you to necessarily to Fort Worth.
Right.
Try and get you close to your home. Now, we're talking about the DFW area because that's your main area of concern. But I think it's safe to say to those people that are watching and listening to the program that the Salvation Army is a nationwide organization. And what you're listening to Christina talking about today, in your community, if there's a Salvation Army and you say, you know what, I got a few hours I can spend volunteering, call your local Salvation Army and say, hey, can I help? I'd like to make a donation. I'd also like to donate some time. So, there are Salvation Army offices all over the country that people can contact. And is there a national website they can go to? Is it salvationarmy.org?
Yes, probably the best thing for people to do right now is to go to rescuechristmas.org. That's our campaign right now because we're
rescuechristmas.org. Okay.
Yes. And that will help them find their local Salvation Army and get them connected with their community to help. And that's one of the really beautiful things I think about the Salvation Army is that we're actually a global organization. And then, of course, we have a huge presence here in the United States. But the wonderful thing is that we have all of these shared resources and shared impact. But because of the way that our operations are structured, we have the ability for people to get really engaged with their community. And our staff gets engaged in the communities in which they work. So we can really help people directly where they live, which makes it easier for people to help, but then also to receive help.
Now, right over your right shoulder, of course, is the familiar bucket that I've seen since I was a child. And going shopping and hearing the bells ringing and asking mom for change that I could put in the bucket and all, and you still do it. When was the bucket drive first started?
Oh gosh, back in the 1800s is when it started, and it was with William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army. So it's a long-standing tradition and something that people, of course, as you described, I have those experiences myself when I was a child. So everybody knows it's kettle time. You're going to hear those bells, and we're out this year. We're still out there. So we need everyone's support.
Yeah, and if you are out there, even though the traffic might be a little bit lighter, if you see a bucket or you hear a bell, be like a magnet. Just be drawn to it and give as much as you possibly can, because the Salvation Army is always in need of your donations as well as your time, if that's available also. So over your left shoulder is a Christmas tree with a bunch of cards hanging from that. Tell us a little about that program this year.
Sure. Well, many people may be familiar with the Salvation Army's Angel Tree program. So you've probably seen tags like this out and about at the malls here in North Texas. As well as maybe at some of our other retail partners. And so that's still happening this year as well. And as you might imagine, we have anticipated that the need for Christmas assistance is greater. So because of the way this particular program is run, we've had to innovate quite a bit this year to make sure that both donors and then those seeking assistance feel safe with the pandemic. So for example, we've done online applications for clients. It is a program that our clients apply to receive this aid. But then on the side for donors, we actually have online angel adoptions this year. So you might see some tags on trees at the malls as you normally do, but the majority of our actual angel tree adoptions are happening online this year for the sake of safety. And so people can still shop for things, and then to return their gifts, we actually have drive-through drop-off locations all across North Texas, so people can have a safe, contactless way to return their angel tree gifts to us. And then we will also conduct drive-through distribution to the clients so that they also can remain safe kind of in their cars and receive those contributions from the public.
You've been with the Salvation Army how long? I think just recently.
Yeah, a little over a year.
And what other things have you done in your life?
Sure. Well, before I worked for the Salvation Army, I worked for the Perot Museum of Nature and Science. So I was there in fundraising for a little over 7 years. I've also worked for the North Texas Food Bank here in Dallas.
So you're a fundraiser.
Yes.
and an overseer. And you're a community and a corporate partner. Work with corporate partnerships. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that the corporate side of giving has pretty much continued, or have you seen an increase in that over the last year because of the need?
You know, we have been very fortunate that we've had many of our corporate partners stay generous to us. What's been really interesting is to see how they've had to, on their own, innovate how they participate with us. A lot of times, particularly for Angel Tree, we have a lot of corporate partners who adopt large amounts of angels. They volunteer with us. There's a lot that happens in the back end of Angel Tree to make sure that every angel is fulfilled and then given to the correct child, because every angel you adopt is actually a real child or special needs adult. So we've seen that change a bit this year. Unfortunately, because so many companies are working remotely, it means that they are not able to send volunteers to help us. But they've tried to make up for it in other ways. So they remain really generous and really trying to help meet the need, because I think everyone sees that it's there. And so we're really just grateful for that.
And I have to tell you, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this, but I've known a lot of things about the Salvation Army over the years. We've donated a lot to the Salvation Army. We are so appreciative that the trucks will come around and pick up donations from the door. But when I started to research a little bit for our conversation, I didn't realize that there are so many programs that the Salvation Army is involved in. For one, I didn't really know that you had an addiction program to assist people in overcoming addiction. Are some of these programs that you have recent programs, or a lot of them have been in place for many years?
Yeah, a lot of them have been in place for many years. And we do have some really fantastic addiction recovery programs. In fact, here in North Texas, we have two what we call adult rehabilitation centers. There's one in Dallas and one in Fort Worth. And that's a voluntary program in which people check themselves in. And so you referenced the trucks coming and picking up donations. The thrift stores that we have, actually the goods that are sold there, those funds are what run those addiction recovery programs. So the donation of your items is really important, because that helps fund those operations. And then at some of our other facilities, we have addiction recovery programs, some of which may be court mandated, and some others may be voluntary. But it's really something that's important to us. We find that a lot of people who may be experiencing addiction find themselves, living at or below the poverty line, or even homeless. So that's often a root cause that we try to help people, navigate and find some relief from.
I know certainly the work that you do with veterans is beyond commendable, because so many veterans fall into some of these other areas. They either fall into the addiction programs, they fall into the homeless programs, they fall into financial needs, and as a veteran myself, I'm so aware of the need for supporting our veterans, and that must be a massive undertaking in itself for the Salvation Army.
Yes, we do, to your point, have some great veterans programs as well. At our Carr P. Collins Social Service Center in Dallas, which is actually one of the largest in the world for the Salvation Army, we have a really fantastic veterans program where we partner with the VA to ensure that they get the care that they need, whether that's physical health, mental health. Some of them, to your point, may have addiction needs, recovery needs, so we help them with that. And then we also try to help them, find jobs and support them while they get back up on their feet.
It's amazing, and I think that also I learned that you help with disaster victims, you help with people in family emergencies. Some of these programs are things that we just kind of associate with the Red Cross or other organizations, but don't really think that this is part of the mission of the Salvation Army. So it's very, very much an outreach program. Again, I draw the people that are listening and watching the attention to the website that's on the screen right now. Make sure that you, or if you know somebody that may be in need of services from the Salvation Army, get online, get in touch, connect those people. So if you know people that maybe are on the brink of maybe losing their home, or veterans that are in need, or people that are hungry, the Salvation Army is there to help, and help by not only connecting them with the Salvation Army, but money is a little tight, but be as generous as you can this time of the year, especially because, as you said, it's the fourth quarter of the year that really raises the funds that you need the rest of the year. And
Right.
and it's probably a misconception. People think that those kettles are out just in November and December. That's it. You pack it all up, you go home, and that's it for the year. But your work is done 12 months out of the year.
Exactly. Yes. And thank you again for emphasizing the importance of fundraising this time of year. And we're trying to do what we can to make it easy for people and to make them comfortable. So one thing I'll mention about the kettles is that at the kettle, I don't know if you can see on the signage behind me, but we have QR codes so that we can offer contactless ways for people to give. So you can scan that QR code with your phone. And it takes you directly to the website where you can make a contribution. We also have Apple Pay and Google Pay. So and then we actually have virtual kettles this year. So there's a virtual kettle that you can give to as well from the comfort of your couch. And you can ring bells as you sit at home if you're not comfortable being out and about.
Oh, really? How does that work?
Well, it's basically a peer-to-peer fundraising site, but we've set up a campaign for us for the Red Kettles. It's called Virtual Red Kettle. And you can make a contribution, or if you would like to, as I say, ring bells, you can set up your own team within that site and then share that with your network so people can donate. You can set a goal. You could say, I'm going to raise $300 because I normally ring bells, and that's typically what's raised at one kettle each day. And so that's a great way to help support us. And it's a lot easier. And there are people who aren't comfortable being out. So this is a way for them to still engage with us.
And that's a great way to introduce children to the program too. So if they can ring the bell virtually, then as they get older and they do get out, and once this COVID is behind us and all, and they go out shopping and they hear that bell and they see those kettles, they'll know what it's all about.
Right.
And speaking of children, you're a mommy. You're a mommy of two. How old are your children?
I have a 6-year-old little girl and a 2-year-old little boy.
Wow. And what do they think of mommy doing all this stuff with the kettles and with the Salvation Army?
They really like it, especially my daughter. She is really proud. So she's the older one and she likes to help. So we've set up some angel trees this season. We shopped last night for our angels that we adopted, all of us together. And we ring bells. We did that for the first time with them last year. And we'll do that again this year, probably a couple of times. So they're proud, and I'm happy to share it with them just so that they know how they can impact the community and help others who need help.
That's terrific. You're not from Cleveland originally, are you?
No, I'm from Mississippi on the coast.
All right. I just wondered if you were one of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh, no.
or your husband.
No, he's from New Orleans, so it's a good, French name.
Yeah, well, Cavalier is kind of a who dat kind of a name too. How did you and your husband meet?
We met in college. We went to school in Jackson, Mississippi at Millsaps College, so we met there.
Very good. That's terrific. I'm glad that your daughter and then your young son will start to get involved in it this year and next year and beyond that too. What are some of the things that you might want to share with the audience? Some of the programs that maybe need a little extra boost for people to consider with their fundraising and their giving.
Thank you. One of the programs that we need a lot of help with right now is Angel Tree. So typically by this time each year, we've basically got the angels adopted, and we're moving to the next phase of the program for us. But we've recently extended our adoption deadline to December 7th, which is Monday, because we still have about 10,000 angels that need to be adopted.
10,000?
Yeah. We still have a great need. I think we're seeing kind of the impact of people not being quite comfortable shopping and getting out and about to do that. So for those that are, that's a big need for us right now. Another need is volunteers for both the kettles, but then also, again, Angel Tree. We have volunteer opportunities for that. And then financial support, as you've mentioned, just to support our year-long operations. But for anyone that wants to bring Christmas cheer to some families in need, Angel Tree is a fantastic way to do it. And I'll just say it's a great way to, if you have children, to teach them that they can help bring some Christmas cheer to others.
And they can go online. Mm-hmm. Now, is the Angel Tree program a national program, or is that just specifically a North Texas program?
Yeah, great question. It's a national program. So every kind of area does it a slightly differently, but most areas do have online adoptions available this year. So in your local community, you can check again with your local Salvation Army and see how they're conducting the program this year. They probably are around the same as us, kind of trying to wrap things up, because as I said, there's a lot that happens after you return your angels so that we can get everything ready to get to the families who need those gifts.
And I have not gone online yet to the Angel Tree program, and I will. But when people go to it, do they have a selection of things that they can do, different levels of giving, and it'll show what those different levels of giving will do for the angels?
Yes. So you can do two things. If you want to make a contribution to the Angel Tree program, you can do that financially. But if you'd like to adopt an angel, you can, again, go to our website, salvationarmynorthtexas.org. And that will help walk you through the process of adopting an angel. And you can choose age and gender if you'd like. You can choose no preference if you'd like.
Great.
And you can peruse the angels and kind of say, oh, this is a little girl who's the same age as my girl, and you can see what their needs and wishes are, and that might be fun. I do that with my children just so they can really connect. So you might choose an angel that way. And then you go shop for your gifts, and you can return them through drive-through drop-off locations that we have, and those begin actually this Thursday. So you won't even have to get out of your car. We'll just get them out for you, our staff and volunteers, and we'll take care of it from there.
You mentioned 10,000 angels. Is that just in the North Texas area?
Yes.
Because at first I thought, wow, that's a lot nationally to have to do, but that is just North Texas. So multiply that around the country. There's a great need.
Yes, absolutely. And we normally serve around 50,000 angels each year through Angel Tree. And as I mentioned earlier, these are actual children or special needs adults. So through the application process, we're identifying need and family. Oftentimes what you're purchasing are clothing items, as well as, of course, a toy or whatever their wish might be. And then it goes to an actual child.
I'm in awe. I really am. I think, it's just absolutely marvelous what you and your associates and all are doing. You're to be commended for that.
Thank you.
Beyond our holiday season, let's go like into springtime. What are some of the programs that you have that you focus on when it's not the kettle time and it's not that time of the year for giving? What are some of the programs that you have for fundraising?
Sure. Great question. So we have 17 centers of operations here in North Texas, and they all have different things going on at different times of the year. But as you mentioned earlier, our programs are year long. So we're serving the community all year. And then in terms of fundraising, we're always fundraising because we have, a need to support the operations. We have various events that typically happen. Spring is a big time for events for us. So we had a really big impact financially from COVID-19 because in the spring, of course, is when everything kind of shut down, which meant we had to cancel. At that point, we canceled 7 of our fundraising events. So we have various luncheons in communities throughout North Texas. We have a really fantastic fashion show and luncheon that we do with our women's auxiliary here in Dallas. So there's a lot that happens in the spring. So we're kind of looking ahead right now and hoping that we can leverage the extra attention that we typically get through the holiday season to raise funds in case those events aren't able to happen again this year.
Yeah, COVID certainly has put a damper on a lot of those in-person events. I know that there are many organizations that have golf tournaments, and there's either been cancellations or severe cutbacks on the ability to handle some of those. So you and your staff have to be pretty creative, from month to month to determine, look, we don't want to cancel this event because it raises X number of dollars, but we have to look at, can we do this virtually? I've seen that there's been a lot of virtual running events across the country that people have put on in order to continue that inflow of money. And certainly another area that is of interest to me is hunger. The need to feed people. We've seen it on the news with stations where people can drive by and pick up bags of food, and there could be 3, 4, 500 cars waiting in line just to pick up a bag of food. So some of the funds that are raised, you can also work within that realm too. Did you say you partnered with North Texas Food Bank?
Yes, we partner with both the North Texas Food Bank and the Tarrant Area Food Bank through our 13 drive-through food pantries across the region. So just as you're describing, we have a drive-through operation in which people can come and receive food from us. We have boxes that we get of shelf-stable items, and then we have other partners, grocery retailers that help us with meat and dairy and fresh produce when it's available, because obviously we want to provide nutritious food to those that we serve. So that has been a really great need in a big way that we've served throughout the pandemic. We always have food pantries available, but they have really escalated in operation. For example, one of our sites in May of this year, that in just that 1 month, they served more people than they had served all year the prior year. So it's just, the need is great. And we're just really grateful to be able to serve and have wonderful partnerships to allow us to do that.
And that's a vicious cycle in itself, because the greater the need for the food, there is also a need for volunteers to assist with the collecting and the packaging and the dissemination of all of that food to people that are in need.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So we have been fortunate that we've had some great volunteers in more recent months that are more comfortable. Of course, we supply PPE, so everyone's masked up, they wear gloves. And again, everything is contactless. But nonetheless, people have been hesitant to get out and about. So we've had our staff even volunteer at these food pantries to ensure that we can continue to serve the community. So we've rotated staff around to help. And we've had some really fantastic community partners help us through this as well, such as the Dallas Cowboys. They've helped us volunteer. Albertsons Tom Thumb has helped us provide food. We just recently, right before Thanksgiving, distributed some Thanksgiving meal kits through these food pantries, thanks to those partners.
Did I also read that you have a program for stopping domestic violence also too?
We do. We serve that through multiple locations here in North Texas. So we actually have a domestic violence shelter. And then you might guess that a lot of people who are coming to us for assistance who might be homeless are sometimes experiencing domestic violence and are domestic violence survivors. So that is something that we deal with a lot. And we deal with families a lot of times in those situations.
Are you at or beyond capacity for a lot of those programs for homeless and domestic issues?
We are at capacity. So we have 4 shelters, not including those 2 adult rehabilitation centers that I mentioned. And they're all at capacity at the moment. But so that we can ensure that we're still meeting the need in the community, we have wonderful community partners, and we've partnered with city governments as well to help ensure that if someone does come to us and they are seeking shelter, that there is a place for them to go. So we wouldn't just turn anyone away and say, sorry, no room here. Instead, we try to find them a place to go.
Yeah, pick up that phone and call one of the partners and say, hey, I've got a family of 4 here that's living in their car, and they don't even have enough money to keep gas in the car to keep it warm. And the weather is turning cold. They need help. And, and it's interesting that that's what America is all about, is when there's a time of crisis, people all pull together and help their neighbors. And this is one of those times, because this pandemic back in February, we were all thinking, well, a few months we'll get a vaccine and everybody will be well by summer and we'll carry on. And I would imagine that you and your staff were saying, well, certainly by the holiday time, we'll be out there, the malls will be busy and we'll be collecting money. And every month it just got pushed back. Now we're starting to see some spikes all over the country. So now Christmas parties are being canceled, travel is being curtailed. And that's another reason to say to people that are watching and that are listening, if you normally travel this time of the year, you're going to be saving that money from traveling. consider taking a portion of that and donating it to one or more of the programs that the Salvation Army has, because I think that's another way of just giving back and paying it forward.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And similarly, we've actually had some of our corporate partners who typically have Christmas parties that have obviously had to be canceled. Instead, they've taken those funds from their budgets and either made a contribution to us, or in the last day, we've had 2 companies call us and say that they were going to adopt a large quantity of angels and use the funds from their Christmas party to fulfill those angels. So there's just, to your point, there's a lot of generosity, and that is so inspiring. It's one of the things I love about what I do, being able to see how the community steps up to help our neighbors in need. And it's really, we're seeing that this year and this season through the pandemic, and it's something we're really grateful for. And then that helps us continue to serve, but then also provide hope to those in need, and then hope to our community. I think that's something we all want to remember, especially this time of year. But when things are just, as you said, COVID keeps going on. We all need that hope to help inspire us to push forward. So we're experiencing that, and then hopefully we're giving some of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're all treading water here, and hoping that we'll find the shore pretty soon and things will get better. But I think that's a beautiful idea that you just mentioned for small, medium, and large size corporations. That if you do have some savings, certainly some of that needs just to keep the overhead to a minimum if you can. But if you're able to save those funds and you can donate those out to worthy causes, it's definitely worthwhile. And that's where that rescuechristmas.org comes in. They can go to that site and find ways that they can. And I think we need to remind people that we're not talking about major contributions here. If you have an extra $10 or $20 that you can spend to help the Salvation Army, donate it. Because if you put your $10 or $20 with somebody else's and somebody else's and somebody else's, it adds up and it becomes meaningful.
Absolutely. A little bit goes a long way. And that is definitely a great point. It doesn't matter if you don't have thousands of dollars to contribute. Every single contribution matters. And it's something we're really grateful for. And we will put it to good use immediately.
Case in point, your buckets, sometimes people go by and give small change. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a $20 bill. You never know what's going to be in that bucket, but by the end of the day, when you add it all up, it's something that's significant to help. I think you mentioned a little bit earlier, but what kind of income do you generate from bucket collections each year?
Yeah, so from the Red Kettle campaign here in North Texas, we typically raise nearly $2 million through that campaign.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that's why you're right. A little bit
incredible.
Adds up, and it goes a long way. And so, and then through other fundraising efforts that we have throughout the holiday season, this year our goal is to raise around $9 million from October to December. So that really, again, helps sustain our operations all year long. So you're very correct that a little bit matters, and it adds
Wow.
up.
Well, I applaud North Texas for
Yes.
getting out there, because it just goes to show that those nickels, dimes, and quarters and all do add up. $2 million. That's terrific, because $2 million, while it won't solve everything, it goes a long way to help.
Absolutely. Yes. And you're right. This community in North Texas is incredibly generous. We were very fortunate to be here and to be able to have not just people's financial contributions, but their hearts and their passion. They give generously of their time. And it's really something that is, like I said before, is inspiring, and it just blows us away.
That's what it's got to make you feel good.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
When you sit down and you talk to your associates and your partners and everything, and they all, I'm sure, are on pins and needles. Are we going to be able to make it this year? And then all of a sudden you see the donations are coming in, and you realize, wow, that people haven't given up on us, and we're not going to give up on them.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's this. So What are do you often sit and talk about future projects and things that you want to institute, and things that maybe once we get past the holiday season, things that you're going to start to look at for spring of 2021?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we are actually in implementation of a new strategic plan that is designed, focusing, as I mentioned earlier, on homelessness, poverty, and addiction to really help transformationally impact the community here in North Texas. So what we'd like to do is impact 10% of people in poverty and help them get above the poverty line and sustain their living at that level. And so we want to do that and have this compounding effect year over year. And so what's really been interesting about the pandemic is that as we were already kind of beginning to implement, and we were in the beginning stages of that strategic plan, we've been able to test a lot of the things that are in that plan. And what I mean by that is really creating even more efficient operations, even more consistency across our very large 5-county service area. So, for example, with our food pantries, we've created hubs that are kind of collecting all the food and then distributing them to the various sites so that it's more efficient. And then we really are making sure that every one of our locations has consistency in food and has everything that they need. So that's something that's really important to us, is to make sure that we're elevating all of our programs, creating consistency with them, and that they're all what we call evidence-based. So based on best practices and what we know from case management and social work actually works and helps people transform their lives. And then outcomes oriented is another kind of buzzword phrase that we use here. And that's really just about making sure that we're measuring the right types of things to ensure that we're having impact. So doing more than just counting the number of people that we're serving, but really understanding the things that help move the needle and help them, empower them to lift themselves out of poverty. So that's kind of what our future is all about. And if there is a blessing in COVID, it's that we've been able to really amend our operations to do that.
Well, also another shout out to those that are listening and watching, that if you say, man, I just love what they're doing in these various programs, and the fact that you have a variety of programs, if you've got a few hours a week to donate to help out, and all, contact Christina through the website. And say, I can give 1, 2, 3 days a week and all to volunteer. And I have a background maybe in food service, so maybe I can help with the pantry, a part of your programs. If you've got the time to devote and volunteer, get involved. And for those around the country, same thing is true. Contact the local Salvation Army and say, hey, is there something that you need a little bit of help with, either now during the holiday season or after the holiday season? Because it's I can tell you that when you give, you get more out of it than what you receive, honestly, because you feel so good about helping to give and making somebody else feel good. And when they smile and they say thank you, it's something that you just cannot put a dollar figure on.
Right, absolutely. And we could not serve the people that we serve without volunteers. So that is something that we really cherish. And
they're kind of the unsung heroes.
Yes, we say that they're a part of our army. They're really important, and they truly make a difference.
How difficult, you've got a background in this fundraising and working with nonprofits, but you said you've been with the Salvation Army for about a year. So that means here comes this young lady who's got this nice, strong background and ready to jump, and all of a sudden you get smacked with this COVID, and you are working for a major player in fundraising and all. How difficult was it for you to transition into the Salvation Army at a very, very difficult time?
Well, it was interesting for sure. So I had, you're right, been on board for just a few months, and I was still really doing my onboarding because we have such a large service area and so many operations. I was learning a lot, but we were, you mentioned earlier, the Salvation Army serves in times of disaster. And so our organization has kind of seen COVID-19 as this ongoing disaster. And so it just meant that I was jumping in with both feet and learning as we go. The great news is that we really here at the Salvation Army have an incredibly compelling story to tell. And it's something that I've had a passion for really my whole life. The Salvation Army, I grew up helping support them and volunteering. So from that perspective, I just rolled my sleeves up and worked with my colleagues to understand how we were serving, craft that story, and just push it out to the community. And because it's so compelling, and this is such a fantastic organization, it wasn't easy, but it was easier than it may seem because we just ramped up and started serving.
Well, I can tell you that the Salvation Army can be very, very proud of Christina Cavalier, and they picked the right candidate for the right position, because even when I first contacted you, you said, well, let me do some checking and see if I can find someone that might be available to talk with you about this. Frankly, I'm absolutely thrilled that you couldn't find somebody else, because you said, you know what, I'm going to do it myself.
Well, thank you.
And I thank you. You are a beautiful young lady. You have a good heart and a good soul and a good program that you're working with. And I hope everyone watching and listening to this program will take a few minutes and go to the website and give, volunteer, look at the programs, adopt an angel, do something to assist the Salvation Army and to assist Christina and the work that she's doing.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity to tell a little bit more about the Salvation Army and what we do.
Well, the very, very best to you and to your family for the holiday season ahead, and I hope you have a very, very blessed holiday. And again, to all of the people in the North Texas program and everything, congratulations. You are heroes, and you are well respected within this community.
Thank you so much. I will
keep
share
up
that
the
with
great
my
work, and happy holidays to you.
You too.
And that will do it for another edition of Someone You Should Know. I very, very much appreciate you spending this time with us, and I hope you will join us again next week for Someone You Should Know. And remember, be yourself, because everyone else is taken.